Okay, at 6:30, we'll call the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors November meeting to order, please. Madam Clerk, may we have roll call?
Dale Schluter, Kay Wilson, Tweed Schuman,
Here.
Stacy Hessel, Jason Weaver, Mark Helwig. Thomas Duffy is excused. Marshall Savitsky, Brian Bissonette, Michael Maestri, Chris Rusk, John Righeimer, Ron Kinsley, Ron Buckholz. I see him virtually.
Yep.
Ed Peters. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Madam Clerk, certification of compliance with open meetings law, please.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by Section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Number 5, meeting agenda has been presented. Number 6, public comment. At this time, members of the public will be given the opportunity to address the board. Please adhere to the following when addressing the board. Number 1, comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less per individual. Number 2, comments should be directed to the board as a whole and not directed to individual board members. Number 3, the board cannot respond to your comments during this time. And number 4, to sign up and fill out a public comment sheet. So I have those in front of me, and we'll start with Mr. Ernest Martinson, please. Step forward to the podium, state your name and address, sir. You'll have 3 minutes.
Ernest Martinson, 15865 Guard Street, Hayward. The Economic Development Committee and UW Extension and the Sawyer County Lacoudre Economic Development Corporation have their work cut out for them, because if you look at government policies, they all work against economic development. For example, the local property tax. If you build a retail store, you're taxed. It wouldn't happen under a land tax, and there would be no loss of revenue necessarily under a land tax. You build a bank, you're taxed. That's bank robbery, not by Jesse James, but by Sawyer County. I realize the county can't do much about this because the county is a creation of the state, but the county is a member of the Wisconsin Counties Association, which lobbies Madison. And Douglas County, during Superior Days in April, sends a delegation to Madison. I suppose Sawyer County does the same thing. But it's the people that have got to get involved. Maybe the UW Extension could hold a series of seminars on the advisability of not paying the property tax. I know I'd grab a front row seat if I could even get a seat. You know, I've often thought that the Hayward area was a suburb of the Twin Cities. Now, I'm not saying that replacing the property tax by a land tax would cause the Twin Cities to become a suburb of Sawyer County, but I can tell you that there are many people from Minnesota would join people in Sawyer County and doing some economic developing. Our tax policies are backwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right, next I have a Karen Boylan, please. Karen Boylan. State your name and address, ma'am, please.
Karen Boylan, 15917 West Carroll Drive, Hayward. This is just concerning solar panel disposal. I've been getting information in the mail from a Texas company that has leased property in other areas of Wisconsin and putting up large solar panel farms, but they have no concern when the end life of those comes up. So I was wondering if that was something that the county could put in place, kind of like they did with, or the EPA did with mining companies, for having to clean up heavy metal disposal waste, soil contamination, rivers, creek, lakes contamination. Solar panels are mainly cadmium and lead are the main heavy metals. Right now, there's not much in place for recycle anywhere near here. And to my knowledge, the only way they can do, if they bury them, they have to have 2 to 3 feet of clay or more, depending on how many layers of solar panels are in there, 2 feet, and then the same above them. And then that land, wherever they're buried, would never be able to be used again for farming or other purposes. So I just wanted to put my concern out there and see if that's something we could do at a county level to put in place for the solar panel companies to kind of make, so it's not at where we're stuck with hazardous waste disposal in like 10, 20 years. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next then I have a Mr. Ron Pettit. Ron Pettit, please.
Thank you. Ron Pettit, 5191N Crawford Street, Winter, Wisconsin. I wished I was like third in regards to this topic, because there are people that know more about this than me. But my concern has to do with the immigrants that are coming from the southern border that are being placed out of Eau Claire, which is a hub within a 100-mile radius of Eau Claire, and that puts us well in range. The problem with that is they have not coordinated with you folks, and I wish they had. I think that sets up a whole bunch of problems that could happen. First of all, we went to, me and a couple of people back here, went to a meeting in Eau Claire about a month ago, and the World Relief Foundation CEO stated that the State Department is mandating no assimilation, but integration. What that means is they're not to be essentially become Americans. They're going to take their values, their culture, their religion, and it's going to be a separate entity within our country. I think this guarantees division. I think it's setting up almost a separate country within a country. I think that's a problem. There's also the issue of there's a good number of these folks that are going to be Islamic. Now, are all Islamic people extreme? No, not at all. But there will be some mixed in with them, and I think that's a concern we should be paying attention to. Those folks tend to follow Sharia law, not man's laws. And that's a problem, because if they're extreme, you're going to have problems here that you're going to have to deal with. Let's see, what else? My main concern is they haven't coordinated with you. The State Department hasn't coordinated with you. They've mandated this, and I think you all should have been included. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next I have a Lauren Peterson. Lauren Peterson.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Lauren Peterson, 53700 Juvelin Road in Mason, Wisconsin. And just want to tell you a little bit about my background. When I graduated from University of Wisconsin, I spent 3 years of my time there, and I had a roommate who was Muslim from Iran. Okay, and he was my roommate. He ended up marrying an American gal, and I was the best man at his wedding. In the last 15 years, I've spent a lot of time over in the UK, and a lot of time with Muslims and all kinds of different people. And as part of that, I don't really believe that a lot of Americans really understand Islam. I don't understand much of it at all. So I just want to do a real quick recap here in the few minutes that I have. So Islam itself has a holy book called the Quran, and supplements to that are the hadiths. They're basically the sayings and the actions of Muhammad. Muhammad is their prophet, and Muhammad, according to the Quran, is the best moral person to follow, for Muslims to follow. So they follow the hadiths, they follow Muhammad, okay? And Muhammad himself, when he was born in late 500s. He spent his time, his early years in Mecca. In Mecca, that's when he had just a few followers. Some say less than 100 followers. He was very peaceful. So a lot of the verses in the Quran are written from that time in Mecca when he was peaceful. He was then left, he was basically kicked out of Mecca, and he went to another place called Medina. He became really very violent there. The later verses in the Quran are very violent. And there's a thing in Islam called the law of abrogation, which means the earlier verses are canceled or overwritten by the later verses, okay? So anytime you hear people say the Quran is peaceful, those verses likely, if not all of them, have been overwritten by the violent verses. And the issue that you've got right now is there are certain Muslims that will follow the Quran to a T, and they will follow the violent verses of the Quran. That's why you see all this stuff happening and stuff. And that's why also you will see different sects of Islam, the Shias from Iran, the Sunnis from Saudi Arabia. They'll be fighting between each other because they both believe differently. So what I really want to bring into this here is that when you're looking at this whole issue, learn as much as you can about Islam, especially with Sharia law that you were just talking about. Sharia law is run out of a mosque. A mosque is basically a local government. It's not like a church like a lot of us would think. They have their own rules. In the UK, they have about 100 Sharia courts.
Okay, can you wrap it up, sir, please?
So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Scott Harbridge. Scott Harbridge.
I'm not as well versed. Oh, Scott Harbridge, 2209 Sunnysack Road, Radisson. I just want to give you a little bit of background on what this is about. Last spring, the city of Eau Claire invited the World Relief Foundation to open an office in Eau Claire. The purpose was to prepare 75 refugees initially to live in Eau Claire or a 100-mile radius, which we fall under the 100-mile radius. There was no notice of the plan. It wasn't made public until it was reported in October by TV 18. And the city of Eau Claire and the World Relief representatives held a public informational meeting on Monday, October 23rd, 2023. Many city residents and concerned citizens from surrounding communities and counties left the meeting with more questions about the financial impact of hosting these refugees than they received answers to. I went to the meetings. The coordinator for the World Relief Foundation was asked where the refugees were coming from, and she stated that she didn't know. And then 3 days later at the second meeting, she stated that they were coming from Syria. And you guys got the handout for the meeting. It's an informational meeting that's going to be held in Hayward here. And there's also one if you can't make it to that, but I implore everybody to go to it because it's pretty eye-opening. When Ron Branstner, he's very educated on the whole subject and everything. There's going to be one this Thursday. It's in Ladysmith at the Warden Avenue Exchange at 6 o'clock also. And this is more about the process of how this works and how the federal government and the nonprofits and how they're facilitating all of this in the areas and how they're moving them in. It's not about immigration to the United States. It's not about, whether you support immigration or whether you don't support immigration. It's about the process of how the government, the federal government is doing this and the costs. And it affects law enforcement, schools, healthcare, housing, and a lot of the resources in the communities. Because after 90 days, the community is left pretty much holding the bag as far as the finances, all the resources and everything in the community. So I just hope that members of the board would take time to go to that meeting and get educated on what this is about. It's not about my beliefs or your beliefs or what anybody believes. It's just about how it affects the communities, and they have information on communities that this has happened to and how it's affected those communities. So, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, sir. All right, next I have Stephanie Harbridge, please.
Hello. My name
Yeah.
is Stephanie Harbridge, 2209N Sunnysack Road, Radisson as well. I was going to read most of what I wrote here, but obviously I can't get it done in 3 minutes. My main concern is there's no possible way to vet these people properly from countries that are in war-torn situations right now. Speaking to several different attorneys, they confirmed that as well. There's no records for these people anymore. Syria hasn't had a legitimate government for over 20 years. When these people come here, they all need translators. There's over 100 hospitals that closed at the southern border because it overtaxed the system, and they all went bankrupt. All these people use the emergency room as their form of medical care, and they all need translators there. They need translators at the schools. They need translators with the police department. It taxes all of our taxes, and generally they go up fourfold to pay for all the social services that these people require and the housing that's involved. And as Scott said, after 90 days, they're on the municipality's nipple for all of the continuing education and all social services, food stamps, and so forth. There are obviously problems with people that are coming through not as good refugees too. They're going to be people that come from the cartel, and the cartel are actively working in our state and all of the states around. When these people they don't come up with $18,000 to cross the border themselves. They're beholden to the cartel that are in our country. So when they get a job, they have to pay these cartel back. And that's a huge problem because these people are effectively being human trafficked. Along with the children, there's over 85,000 children that are missing in our country right now. Nobody knows where they are. They've come across the border and disappeared. They've got Walmarts in Texas that were set up for this. Then they've been busing them in the middle of the night to other states, these children, supposedly to handlers, but nobody knows who they are either. So it's a human crisis along with an economic crisis. And I implore you guys to please do your research on this. They're under federal code. They were supposed to let every municipality and every county know about this before they bring these people here. And they're showing up in January. So we're already under the gun to try to educate everybody about this. And as you probably heard, up in Bemidji, there was 3 young girls that were kidnapped and raped by a cartel group of guys. And the following week, another girl was kidnapped and raped as well. So this affects everybody, our security and our safety and our economic welfare. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, anybody online for public comment? All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, moving on to number 7, appointments and recognition. Mr. Alvarado, looks like we have a reappointment to our Veterans Service Commission, sir.
Yes, Stephen Lynch has been serving on the Veterans Service Commission, and he's recommended for reappointment by the commission.
What length of appointment time does he hold?
It's a three-year
3-year
terms, and
Okay.
there's 3 members. They're each 3-year terms, and they rotate.
Okay, entertain a motion then to approve Mr. Lynch for another 3-year term on our Veterans Service Commission. Ms. Hessel.
Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Hessel, second by Mr. Righeimer, to approve Stephen Lynch for a reappointment of 3 years to our Veterans Service Commission. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you all. All right, we'll go to letter B. Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and on board. This time, I'd like our highway commissioner to come up, please. I'd like Brenda Vicey to come forward and Brad Vicey to come forward. Brad Vicey has been working for us, the taxpayers, for 32 years. He's seen a lot of it at the highway department. He's seen a lot of things happen. He's worked very hard to keep the roads in good shape so we travel safely. We don't have to worry about accidents. And he got a chance to move up to be patrol superintendent. He did that for 8 years. And he was also asked to fill in for the highway commissioner when we had the highway commissioner resign until we filled the position. So after 32 years, he's done on January 6th, maybe. And I would like to give a plaque to him that says, Wisconsin Department of Transportation Thank you, Brad Vicey, for 32 years of service and 8 years as the patrol superintendent. Thank you, Brad.
Great work, sir. Yep. Thank you, Brad. Great job. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kinsley.
Mr. Chairman, also we have a cake back here. We'd like everybody to participate and have a piece of cake to celebrate Mr. Biden.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. And as Mr. Kinsley works his way back, we'll go to number 8 then. Consider approval of our meeting minutes, October 19th, 2023. Has the board had a chance to review these? Any edits, corrections? Ms. Wilson, did you?
I'll make a motion to approve October 19th minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Wilson, second by Mr. Savitsky to approve our meeting minutes, October 19th, 2023. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Madam Clerk, make note that we have Mr. Bissonette on now, please. Okay, thank you. Number 9, Finance Committee Chair Report. Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The biggest thing that the finance has been working on with the administration is our budget. And we have our accountant here tonight to present the budget for us. So let's go straight to that, please.
All right, thank you. Mr. Markren, 2024 budget presentation, right? Thank you. 2024 budget presentation, Mr. Markren.
All right, thank you. I probably will not be here 32 years, just letting you guys know. That's quite an accomplishment.
Yep.
This will be our third look at the budget. There were just a couple minor changes from the first time to the second. It's unchanged from the last meeting. Those of you on the Finance Committee, this will be the 6th time looking at it, so I'm going to kind of hit the high points this time
Good,
through
thank
it.
you, yep.
Starting with the actual levy itself. Next slide, there we go. So the operating levy would increase by 1.2%, just a kind of a smaller increase. Debt service is going to go up a little bit more as we're fully paying for the courthouse now. Increase of a couple $100,000. And special purpose levy, which we'll go through in detail in a little bit, is going up about 2.25%. So overall, the total levy would go up $385,000 or 2.75%, which after 2 years of about $1 million increase each year, we're happy to report on this one. Any questions on the levy itself? All right, next we'll look at a little bit of a breakdown, starting with the operating portion of the levy. This is a levy limit that is set that we have to follow, and it's made up of what you see here. The general fund makes up almost half of that portion of the operating levy. And you can see there's just a little bit of an increase over last year. Same with Health and Human Services, that's about 20%. And again, a very minimal increase. Recreational officers going down a little, Land and Water Conservation staying flat. And Nemaconga Transit, we are recommending a $10,000 increase there. That makes up just a little over 1.25% of the budget. And debt service, again, is going to be a little bit of an increase over last year, and it makes up almost 16% of the budget. Highway Department. Okay, I'll try to talk louder and bend over.
Yep.
Does it extend? There we go. Yeah, I could walk around. Highway is having a little bit of an increase as well. We did budget that a little bit differently this year, looking more at, with the changeover at the commissioner, yes, we are changing how we're budgeting. That did add a little bit because we looked at more of what we've spent versus kind of what was budgeted in the past. So that came up with our overall operating levy of just over $12 million. Next, we'll move on to the special purpose portion of the levy. The first 5 items there are libraries. Overall, they are down a little bit from last year, primarily because the LCO library had quite a bit less circulation than last year. So that's why that one's down. The EMS operating is staying relatively flat, just a very small increase, and we are recommending buying another ambulance, which is about a $10,000 increase over last year. And the local bridge aid went up about $30,000, which is pretty close to where it was 2 years ago. Last year we saw a little bit of a dip. So all those add up to just around $2.2 million. Added together with the operating levy, it's an increase of 2.7%. And then when I add in the state charges that they put on there, it comes up to 2.75%. With our valuation increase of about 18.5%, the tax levy rate is taking quite a drop. It does not, as I've said before, does not mean taxes are going down. It's just that the appreciation of our value of our properties went up this much, the levy went up this much, so the levy rate goes down. So quick explanation of that. Again, it's not that taxes are going down. I want to clarify that. And the valuation sounds great. The unfortunate part is net new construction was about 1.18%, very minimal. Commercial didn't go up a lot, so the increase in valuation is primarily due to just appreciation of our current residential homes in Sawyer County. The next slide shows the CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan, purchases that we are recommending. It's $1.5 million. This debt was already issued in July when we did that $4 million issue that included 23 CIP, 24 CIP, the payoff of the stifle loan we took out for a property in December, and the remaining courthouse construction costs. So we had to come in at 1.5, and it just came in at that. There was one account I had to adjust $2,000. I worked with Tim Hagberg on that. So otherwise we came out just where we needed to be. Next, moving to outside organizations. These are, the only one that's supported by direct levy money is Nemacolin Transit. The rest of them just come out of general fund monies that could come from anything. So I just wanted to point that out. The fair, the levy request is down, not levy request, the request for funding is down a little bit from last year, but they also did a $10,000 CIP, so they're pretty much on level with the previous year. Senior Resource Center had a request of $150,000. We had given them about $120 last year, so we're recommending going to $130, kind of meeting in the middle on that. Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention is asking for the same $50,000 they've asked for several years now. Northwest Regional Planning is actually down a little from last year. Economic Development Corp did ask for a $5,000 increase over the previous years that had been the same for quite a few years as well. Nemacolin Transit asked for an increase up to 180 from 155. We are recommending 165 there, again, kind of meeting in the middle. And then Clean Sweep and ITBC are other functions from Northwest Regional Planning that have remained unchanged for several years now. Any questions on any of these? And then the last slide regarding the budget I have is just kind of a tax rate history of the county tax. And you can see we've always been right around 3, a little under, a little above. This is the lowest mill rate we've had going back to 2012. So that is good news, even if it is mostly due to residential appreciation. So that's all I have on the budget, unless there are any questions.
Mike, was there any changes during November, then the committee meetings regarding our budget presentation from October? I don't see anything, so that's what I'm asking.
I don't think so, no.
Yeah.
No, not from November. There were a couple minor ones from October to November, but nothing from November on.
All right.
Moving on to courthouse fees then. The only change from the presentation last month is there was one thing we missed on the dog pound fees. And that was just to make it congruent, make the multiple dog license congruent with the single dog license. So it's just a date change to mimic the dates for the single. Otherwise, all the fees are the same as what was presented last month. Any questions on fee schedule? We really had minimal changes altogether for 2024. The next slide then, if you want to go down, is the capital improvement plan, which I already brought up one time. This is just another quick look at it because it is a separate part of the resolution. So I just wanted to bring that up again. The next one is the FTE, or employee count, and that is actually remaining unchanged. There's a little bit of shifting around. We had a retirement of our surveyor. To this point, we have not replaced that. We've been operating okay without that. And there were some requests for additions. Due to the second courtroom, clerk of course requested a 0.6 increase. Forestry, that one is due to extension doing support staff help through another avenue. We're working with other counties, so they're getting their own support staff. That 0.1 reduction there would actually go back to forestry, which was a shared staff position. 0.9 to 0.1, we would just move that all the way to forestry. And then dog pound did request some help there. If you recall, last year we changed the dog pound position to more of a code enforcement. We could use a little more help at the dog pound directly, so that's what that is for. Any questions on the FTEs? Next are the pay grids. What we are recommending is a 2% increase January 1st, and then another 1% on July 1. So those grids you see before you are reflective of that. Just trying to keep up with neighboring counties and other entities that we compete with for staffing. And then the final piece would be the resolution itself. Again, it's asking for the approval for the things we just went through, and the fiscal impact would be that levy amount of $14,386,859. And this did pass through the Finance Committee last Thursday.
Okay, so then I'd ask our chairman of our Finance Committee, did your committee unanimously recommend this budget for approval today?
Mr. Chairman, the Sawyer County Finance Committee approved the budget last Thursday.
And are recommending for approval here.
Yes.
Ms. Hessel.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt the 2024 Sawyer County budget and 2023 property tax levy to be collected in 2024, the 2024 comprehensive plan, and the 2024 authorized employees, and the 2024 fee schedule, and the 2024 capital improvement plan.
Thank you. I got a motion by Ms. Hessel approving the resolution. Mr. Schluter? Okay. A second, sir? Okay. Motion by Ms. Hessel, second by Mr. Schluter to approve the resolution presented as so nicely read by Ms. Hessel. Is there any further discussion? Anyone online, Alex? Mr. Maestri? Anything you want to discuss on the budget, sir? We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve. Okay. Mr. Bissonette? Okay. If not, then we have our voting machines for this very important vote.
The vote is open. May I collect a vote from Mr. Buckholz, please? Okay. Mr. Maestri, could I collect your vote, please?
I vote yes.
I'm clicking. There we go. Mr. Bissonette.
I vote yes.
Come on. Okay, Ron, yours did not take. John, yours did not take. Dale, let's get your vote. Green for yes, red for no. Did it go? Yeah, yours went. Mark, yours did not take. Ed, yours did not take.
All right.
Okay.
What do we got, Madam Clerk?
It's not on your screen. It's not,
Right.
Ron Buckholz is not on.
Yeah, I could not get his vote. I don't know if his audio is not working or what, but. Well, the software is giving us quicker, isn't it? It's not ending my vote. I apologize for the software again. It seems to
No,
be
that's
freezing
okay.
up. Maybe
Let's
we
do a roll
cannot-
call vote then,
Yeah, I think
Madam
that's
Clerk.
a very good idea. Sorry.
Motion to approve the resolution approving the 24 budget.
Okay, then I will do a roll call vote since we are frozen. Ms. Wilson? Yes. Mr. Schleter? Yes. Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel?
Yes.
Mr. Helwig? Yes. Mr. Savitsky?
Yes.
Mr. Bizinet?
Yes.
Mr. Maestri?
Yes.
Mr. Righeimer?
Yes.
And Mr. Buckholz?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
You have unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Motion carries. And Mike, I want to comment on how well you did, you and Mr. Alvarado, on this budget, and our finance committee, Mr. Kinsley. Your team did a great job here.
Takes everybody to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
You bet. All right, moving on then to number 10. Zoning Committee Chair Report. As our Vice Chairman, Ms. Stacy Hessel, will give the report, please.
All right, the zoning committee will hold its monthly public hearing tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. At last month's meeting, the committee held discussion with various town supervisors to determine what route to go with the multi-dwelling development language within the zoning ordinance. That draft ordinance language should be available to the committee in December. The committee also heard and approved 2 conditional use permits and 2 county subdivision plats. The zoning department continues to see above average permits and general inquiries. Year-to-date, land use permits are at 538, which is up 36 land use permits over this same time last year. Department zoning staff and Health and Human Services, in conjunction with legal counsel, are also currently working on proposed language for tourist rooming house aspects as determined by the ad hoc committee. And that is the end of the zoning report.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hessel. All right, moving on then to number 11, Public Safety Committee Report by our Vice Chairman, Mr. Mark Helwig, sir.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, the public safety meeting was conducted on November 2nd. We had a courthouse update by Mr. Alvarado. Punch lists, final fixes are underway. The clerk of court's office had a written report. Mrs. Kelsey advised that the criminal clerk vacancy has been filled and that she's requesting a half-time position becomes a full-time position. The sheriff's report, excuse me, a written report was provided, reviewed by Lieutenant Repazinski. The call volume has increased. Some of the events were highlighted, as in Cranberry Fest. So that was in Stone Lake went well. But a lot of people were there. It was a good time. Patrol report was provided by Lieutenant Repazinski. Sheriff provided a jail report. I believe there was current at the time. I believe it was 67 current inmate unemployment rate is at 70%. Communication specialist was a written report was provided. We had the resolution for the tribal law enforcement grant was presented for annual renewal by Mr. Alvarado. That was voted on and passed. It's an annual resolution. Code enforcement specialist gave us a report. The dog licensing period for 2024 begins December 1st. The sale, excuse me, Mr. Alvarado advised us that the canine operation is downsizing to one dog. So there'll be a sales of the canine squad, one of the squads. And there's actually someone that's already reached out to potentially purchase that. Excuse me, Burnett County has made an offer. The emergency management had a report. Sheriff Marotek advised that the hazmat training was held last week at the Hayward Area Memorial Hospital. Training involved chemical spill exercise. Chief Sadair reported that the latest full-time hire in dispatch is now working solo. A second interviewee has accepted a vacant position. There are 14,872 calls year to date. Written report was given by the Child Support Department. Emergency Services had a written report by Mr. Frommel. Calls are up from last year with 129 in October. He listed a breakdown. He's doing a great job in that position, giving us lots of information. The EMS staff will be undertaking a dementia care training. They 39% for ambulance fee collection. Mr. Alvarado provided an update of township contracts, the town of Birchwood and town of Stone Lake choosing to opt out. Discussion is underway with new homeless shelter initiative. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Helwig, and we have one action item here, Mr. Alvarado. We've got a...
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, Mr. Buckholz.
I would like to back up to the zoning committee, report. When did Ms. Haskell say the next zoning meeting was?
Tomorrow morning.
She said tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning at 8:30.
Tomorrow morning at 8:30, do we have to put on a Wednesday now?
Just for this month.
Okay,
I must have missed that somewhere. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, Mr. Alvarado, we have a cooperative law agreement resolution to approve.
Correct. The tribal law enforcement grant is an annual grant available through the Department of Justice to cooperative efforts between tribal law enforcement and the county law enforcement. We're taking the same route we did last year in that the county sponsors the application and passes the resolution supporting it, so it can be submitted, and the funds will flow directly to the Coudray tribal law enforcement for their animal control program. And the Coudray have been responsible for preparing the application, and this year they'll be submitting for reimbursement for the $23 as they will do next year for the grant funds received next year.
Okay, so then I would entertain a motion, Mr. Kinsley.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Kinsley, Mr. Righeimer.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Kinsley, second by Mr. Righeimer, approving the cooperative tribal law enforcement resolution as presented. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Wonderful. Does that conclude your report then, Mr. Helwig?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving on to number 12, Public Works Committee Chair Report. Mr. Kinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a report from the maintenance department. They are busy getting ready for the winter snow that's coming. They feel that the airport equipment is ready to go, and they're working on a few minor adjustments in the heating system for the new building. There seems to be some things they have to work out. Out at the airport's been busier than every year. It gets busier, which is a good thing. They're also working on a master plan. They have a plan advisory committee. They've met twice so far. They anticipate meeting 2 more times before they bring it to Public Works, and then it'll come to the full county board. One of the big issues seemed to be about expansion of the airport. That decision has not been made, but a lot of people seem to think that it has. Highway department, the crews have been out brushing. They're also getting ready for the winter time coming, and a big issue is we're looking at putting a roundabout out by the LCO casino. So that could be coming in the future. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kinsley. All right, moving on then, number 13, Land, Water, Forest, Resource Committee Chair Report. Mr. Peters.
Yes, thank you, sir. Land, Water, Forest, Resources Committee meeting was on November 8th, and Register of Deeds provided a written report. Wisconsin Land Information Association is moving ahead with legislation to increase the recording fee from $30 to $45, and these fees would be split among the county land records and the Department of Administration. A written list of events that have been applied for and proof of insurance has been verified, was submitted and approved. Sale of county-owned property to a previous owner was approved since a cash payment covering delinquent taxes and fees was received. Land records and county surveyor presented written reports stating that about 200 transfers were processed in October, 6 certified survey maps were reviewed, and the department is also preparing to calculate and print property tax bills. Recreational Trails report reminded us that some trails will be closed from November 15th to December 15th during the hunting season. NORTAC has been working on a 10 county user survey that will provide information on the economic impact of trail use by the end of 2024. County Forestry provided a written report that showed we'll be likely surpass our revenue goal for this year. The Sawyer County Forest Timber Programmatic and Fiscal Review Audit was very positive. We approved a fall timber sale of bids on 16 different bids that were presented. 10 sale offerings that received no bids will be offered at future sales. Zoning Conservation provided a written report. They're working on several ordinance amendments, which includes the county floodplain ordinance. And preparations are underway for the spring tree sale, and information packets have been sent to Sawyer County Schools for conservation poster and speaker contest. LCO is wrapping up their 2023 habitat improvement projects, and planning is underway for 2024. There was no USDA report due to the untimely passing of Mr. Kevin Sheptick. And the committee also passed and recommends to the county board a resolution on our agenda this evening. That's the end of my report, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peters. So, Mr. Alvarado, we have a resolution in front of us on enhanced wake regulations. And if you could explain that to everyone, please, before we entertain a motion.
Well, I can give you the brief explanation, then I would suggest that Supervisor Peters could give you a better explanation since he authored the resolution. But it's pertaining to proposed legislation that is no longer being proposed within our state legislature regarding a standard wake boat regulations around the state. But I think at this point, I'll just suggest Mr. Peters.
Sure, Mr. Peters.
More of the details.
Certainly. This came to the attention of a number of people around the county because of the impact of wake boats on various bodies of water. And it particularly emphasizes that the proposed legislation, which was removed from consideration for this year, would have removed the towns as being the primary controllers of what happens to the lakes within their area. And so the legislation is to allow towns, or the resolution basically is to allow the local governments to have control over their own standards beyond state minimums, and of the distance from the shoreline that these large boats can operate, and also the depth of the water at 30 feet.
Okay. And this moved through your committee, sir, and was approved to come here?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was unanimously approved.
All right, Mr. Hellwig.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, I got a motion by Mr. Hellwig approving the resolution. Ms. Wilson?
I'll second that.
Second by Ms. Wilson. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Maestri, Mr. Bissonette, on the resolution? Discussion? No. Mr. Alvarado?
Yeah, just one thing that we discussed when the resolution was approved at committee was that upon approval of the county board, that the resolution be distributed to our local legislators and surrounding surrounding counties.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. If no further discussion, Madam Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Ms. Wilson? Mr. Schleter? Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel? Mr. Hellwig? Mr. Savitsky? Mr. Bissonette? Mr. Maestri? Mr. Righeimer? Mr. Kinsley? Mr. Buckholz? Mr. Peters? Passes.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right. That does conclude your report then, Mr. Peters. Land, Water, Forestry, sir. Thank you. All right, moving on, number 14 then. Health and Human Services Board Chair Report. Mr. Schleter.
Thank you. This thing's on now, right?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Health and Human Services will have a all-staff meeting on January 24th. This will be the second time they have done that, and the courthouse will be closed from 11:30 to 4, not the courthouse, just Health and Human Services will be closed from 11:30 to 4 o'clock. And this was approved prior by the full county board. Oops, wrong page, I'm sorry. Is it really right? Okay, where to go? Here, I got it. I'm fine. Sorry about that. Also, I want to recommend, or not recommend, to recognize that Bill Trapagna is now our LCO liaison between LCO and the Health and Human Services Department. And we welcome him aboard and look forward to working with him. Thank you. Health and Human Services Department has a proposed fee schedule increase approved by the board for its public safety people who go out and the water testing, checking the wells, checking the grounds, so on and so forth, doing the licensing. Okay. And the third thing happening is Health and Human Services is going to work in cooperation with the school system to see what can be done about a fairly appalling delinquency rate in our local schools. The idea is to catch these kids, not literally, but at a young age, find out why the truancy is happening. There are lots of quite reasonable reasons, turmoil in the household, poverty, malnutrition. There's a lot going on, and there will be more reports on that as the operation between the school and public health takes place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slater. Moving on then to number 15, Economic Development and U of A Extension Committee Report. Mr. Righeimer.
We met on November 6th. The Sawyer County Fair presented. Their numbers for 23 were up about 1,000 people. They will be adding more handicap seating for next year, and they continue to work on grounds maintenance projects. The report was given to us by the University of Wisconsin Extension Department. They are looking at an AmeriCorps position that will help supplement staffing for the 4-H activity. Hayward Lakes and Visitors Convention Bureau gave a report. They provided highlights that what the Bureau does for the southern part of the county, their marketing and the benefits that they receive. The Economic Development Corporation report, they are interviewing for a director position. Both libraries gave us an update. In Hayward, they have a big program that'll be coming on soon that is something to do with T-Rex, but the point of it is to T-Rex dinosaurs, but the point is to have an activity to help teach kids good manners and teaching them letter writing. The Winter Library, their distribution last year was, this year is 9,000 items circulated. And, that was last year. And this year they're at 8,300 already, and they're expected to surpass what they did last year. Their attendance at activities has also increased. The motorized trail and non-motorized trail report was given. They attended a statewide conference, and the state last year for trail passes for snowmobiles was $4.2 million. Broadband update was given by Mr. Alvarado. There's a current round of applications for projects that will end at November 7th, and we provided letters of support for those requests. There was an LCO update on their health clinic. The concrete footings are in, and the construction will start soon. They are hoping to have that scheduled to open May of 25. The Historical Society gave a report. Mr. Ferguson gave that report. They are in winter hours now, which is Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and or they have by appointment as well. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Righeimer. All right, moving on then to number 16, County Administrator's Report. Mr. Alvarado.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief because a lot of it's been covered, and we haven't, a little bit early in the month for our regular monthly meeting here. Yeah, we're still working through a few punch list items on the courthouse renovation, and then once those are done in the next couple of weeks, we expect to be wrapping up the project. We did fill the Children, Youth, Family Supervisor position in Human Services. Still recruiting for a few positions, part-time clerk of court, as well as kind of our normal positions that we have open at Highway, Sheriff, and the ambulance service. We are working on an updated employee benefits package along with the wage adjustments you just approved. We are able to offer favorable health insurance renewals and have employees able to pick from a plan this year with either a highly or lower deductible. And then we also were able to bring down the dental and vision rates. An open enrollment is ongoing with that right now. I have introduced a proposal for a conversion to PTO that would apply to some employees next year, and that's under review at this point as well. And then next month, we'll be tackling the health and well-being incentives as another employee benefit to improve upon. And there's been a considerable amount of time in the HR world addressing a few significant personnel matters that are ongoing, but we're making progress on those. Corporation Council, still a fair amount of land use zoning items, the Turnbush Rooming House ad hoc committee support, and then also working through a few large open records requests. We have a number of ordinances under development that'll be hopefully coming together over the next couple of months and getting those put to bed. Previously, we've discussed mental health services in the jail, and some issues there. We do have made progress there and have brought a new provider on board. Not really many more hours that were going to be applied to mental health, but we were able to work with a local provider that we'll have easy access to and some consistency rather than working through a contracted agency. The 24 TAD grant is going in, I think tomorrow's the deadline. And then we signed off on receiving the law enforcement deflection grant that we'll be working with between our Sheriff's Department and Justice Point. Like I've been mentioned, we did lose 2 Washburn County towns that were contracting with us for ambulance service. Won't change our staffing or rig locations, our bases, but we are talking about some other flexibility we could gain with how ambulances are positioned during the day. I think Mr. Kinsley gave you the update on the airport. We're all hoping that this weather holds and we don't have a ton of snow removal between now and the end of the year. It was a rough 23 already, so hopefully this weather holds out. I want to reiterate what Mr. Kinsley said regarding the master plan. Their next meeting is anticipated to be in February, and then the 4th meeting of that group in May or June of next year. Both of those meetings will have public comment periods or public hearings where the information will be shared. If anybody's interested in the master planning process for the airport as it moves along here, there is a website, sawyercounty.airportstudy.net, that has all the data that's been gathered and kind of the outline of where things are headed. And like he said as well, the early part of this project is data gathering by the consultants, looking at how the airport's being used and the activity that occurs out there. And I know there's some perception that this was all, the master plan is an expansion plan, and really it's not. It might end up at the talk of an expansion, but really it's to take a look at how the airport is functioning, things we need to be aware of, and what the future might hold. And the airport, without us doing anything, is expanding. The amount of activity there, the data that it's data showing there's greater amount of activity, more operations, bigger planes, more traffic, period. So we'll see where that leads. Economic development, the Sawyer County LCO Development Corporation, which we support, has been without staff, but they do have our new director coming on board. And then there's an annual meeting on December 14th, where they'll be releasing the housing study that they essentially commissioned, and then a presentation from UW-Madison on demographics, economics of Sawyer County. The last round of broadband projects was for the capital projects grants through the PSC, and then now the attention's turning to the BEAD funding, which will be out after the first of the year. LCO, we were working on a meeting we had, some items there regarding tax deed properties within the reservation boundaries. We've determined that we cannot give them preference on those properties. We have to put them up for public sale. And then you approve the cooperative tribal law enforcement grant. Sheriff Public Safety, the radio system RFP is out and is due at the end of responses are due at the end of the month. And then just to reiterate, we initiated some training for Board of Adjustment and Zoning Committee through the Center for Land Use at UW Stevens Point. We just had the Board of Adjustment training this afternoon. I think there was a good turnout and good representation from our Board of Adjustment. And if you're interested in knowing how a zoning committee or planning commission operates or should operate, that training is on Wednesday, November 29th from 3 to 6. And let me know if any board members that want to attend, I can sign you up for that.
Okay, Mr. Kinsley.
Mr. Alvarado, on broadband, there was 4 letters of support. Do you recall which 4 they are, what areas, please?
Sure. Charter, fairly large area. I don't, kind of around the fringes, I would say, of Hayward. Mosaic, there was 2 applications they submitted, 2 separate ones. Both of those were located as southwest or south of Hayward. And then Norvado, kind of filling in there. I mean, they have some, winter area. They have some in the winter. They've built down through there, and they've built down towards Hayward. So it's starting to build in the middle.
Okay. All right, anything else from Mr. Alvarado? Thank you, sir, for that good report. Moving on then, the correspondence reports. Madam Clerk, do you have anything you want to report?
No, but I would like supervisors to stay afterwards because we have another resolution to sign.
Okay, Mr. Helwig.
Would you like to introduce our new transit manager?
Oh, I'm not prepared to, but Carrie, yes, I would. Carrie, please step forward, introduce yourself, ma'am, to all of the providers. There was an interview process. Mr. Peters, Mr. Buckholz, Mr. Helwig, myself, and 2 other tribal governing folks put out for several interviews, correct, Mr. Helwig? And Carrie was selected. So
Thank you, Tweed. My name is Carrie Saban, and I'm the new transit manager at the transit. I started yesterday, so very new.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Helwig. Yep. Welcome. Okay, anything else from anyone? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you all for coming.